Hi everyone, you get 2 videos in one night. Well, the previous video to this one is still uploading, it's not far off being complete, so I thought I'd get this one out of the way tonight as well. Okay, here is a standard coil. You can see on the video, or at least I can anyway, the lines that I've rubbed out. I've just reused a sheet that I used about 10 minutes ago. So I've just rubbed them out, but you can still see where my lines were that I drew on there. What I've drawn extra is an illustration of a rotor. So you can see if the magnet was here, let's use a pencil. If the magnet was here, you can see that the field would be forming from the drive coil to push the magnet away. Standard pulse motor. Okay. Here's the interesting bit. When the magnet is, say, the scale's slightly off, my apologies, but let's say your magnet is there, just before the coil cuts off. Right. What happens? Okay, well, first of all, we'll draw the lines on the magnet, which are pretty much like that. Yep, you can see them. Wonderful. Okay. What I'm going to refer to as the back side of the coil. Remember, this is just a cross-sectional area of the coil. The magnetic field on the back side is pretty much as standard, so we're not going to worry about that. The field, however, here becomes very, very funky, because the field from the magnet affects the field from the coil. So what you get is a very interestingly weird compression of the fields there. That's what pushes the magnet away. That's what it's designed for. It distorts the, for want of a better way of putting it, the trailing edge of the drive coil's magnetic field. Because don't forget, your rotor in this illustration, your rotor's rotating that way. So I define this side as the trailing edge and that side as the leading edge, in terms of the magnetic field, of course. So right here you get a very, very interesting compression. If you have the drive coil too close to the magnet, then the fields compress too much and you get that sort of weird clunking effect. If they're too far away, you don't get a lot of force. So there is a happy medium there. So, that being said, and if you're watching my previous video as well, or if you've just watched it rather, you will also know that the magnetic field diversifies. So, is there a way? We've already talked about shaping and putting the magnetic field into more of a point. Is there a way to increase that, go one step further? The answer is yes. This is where things get fun. One moment. Okay, where did I put it? Really? I've just put it down and it's gone walkabout. Are you kidding me? Someone over here behind me. That'll do. 1 second. Actually, I won't draw that on yet. Right. Here's a really funky coil for you. Okay, what we have, bog standard coil. Always start with a bog standard coil. Makes life easier for comparisons. However, in front of the coil, we have an air coil, basically. For illustration purposes, I've just made the air coil the same physical size as the normal coil. But in reality, you want to tune the air coil. Right. When you energise the air coil, right, if you've looked at the links that I put on my previous video, you're going to realise where I'm going to go with this. When you energise the air coil, what you get, if I can draw properly, nope, can't draw this one properly at all. I did better in my last video. Anyway, you get a magnetic field that looks like that, and you get a compression of the field there. Right. Now let's assume field is rotating that way, which should be the same as this way. So you got a north field there from your drive coil, and you get a north field there. So you get, relatively speaking, south field on that side of the air coil, north field on that side of the air coil. Right, if you energise both of these at the same time, right, what do you think is going to happen to the field from the drive coil? Is it going to go up there? Nope, because you've got direction opposites here. Right? Because the magnetic field that comes round from the air coil, right, is going in the opposite direction to that of the drive coil. So what's actually going to happen is, if you get this right, you will suck the magnetic field from the drive coil, the core of the drive coil, and compress it in the middle of your air coil. I'll give you a few moments to work that out. You'll pull it, you'll literally draw it out and then compress it between the coils rather. When you get out here, right, because it is so compressed at this point, right, it is more difficult to wrap around these coils, around the air coils. So what you would get, no, that's drawn that wrong. What you'd get, bear with me, it's not more difficult, you get, it's a focus effect here. Jesus, come on. What you get is all this field is focused there, and then it splits off in very tight packed lines around your air coil. the sizes are a little bit off on this, but never mind. Right, until it gets to, well, I'll show you on the latter part, around about here. Right, and then it starts to diversify. Right, now you have to set this air coil up properly, correct distances, correct dimension in the middle there. Right. One thing else, if you just run these two in parallel or series, you're not going to get a decent effect. However, one of the funky things that you can do is, if you make this air coil out of thin gauge wire and use a high voltage, you will get a much better result. Right. When your drive coil starts to pulse, it's probably not the most efficient time to energize your air coil, because the magnetic field around here is just starting to form, so it's an inefficient use of power. If you wait until the magnetic field around your drive coil is fully formed and then pulse your air coil, you will get a significantly stronger field. Now, in the terms of a rotor, which I'm now going to grab this thing and align it to the video like that. If I rotate it like that, you can see. Let's assume the magnet's here, where this little sparry thing is on the CD protector. So when it's top dead centre there, magnetic field in your drive coil just starts to form. As it goes past, right, there, by about there, right, your drive coil should be fully formed, and that's when you pulse your air coil. Because as you can see here, you get a very dense line coming out. Now, if you wanted to do something really funky at this point, you can, which gives you a hell of a lot more torque, if you had a magnet with the south side pointing out just at the right point, around about there, right, trailing the north magnet, you will suck it in. And when I mean suck it in, oh my god, do I mean suck it in, as well as blowing out the north field magnet. All with one single pulse, which means you get twice as much torque from the same pulse. Couple that with an air coil here, which, for want of a better way, I want to say focuses the magnetic field as much as squeezes it. Call it a squeeze coil if you want. Yeah, doesn't sound so good. Yeah, well, I'll come up with a name for it, I'm sure. You'll squeeze and make the magnetic field from your drive coil a hell of a lot more dense than what it is when it first comes out, which, if you have it set up properly, you will get a hell of a lot more, well, not just torque, but you will also get, it goes back to an explanation, I think I did a video on it, of relative angular velocities, talking about magnets on your rotor. Because magnetism is, well, it's not instantaneous, it doesn't travel instantaneously. It doesn't travel at the speed of light. Nobody's actually come up with the speed of it, but it does have a speed difference, and it changes speed through objects, etc., etc. But the velocity of the magnet on the outside of your rotor and its magnetic field, don't forget, the magnetic field flowing around the magnet on your rotor is travelling at a speed relative to the magnet, and the magnet is travelling at a speed relative to your coil, which is why I did the video. So the overall speed of the field from the magnet is different. It's not constant. So you get a push from here against the trailing edge of the magnet, which is travelling slower than the leading edges. Right. So you get literally in this illustration, you get a third compression behind the magnet. You also get some funky crap going on with any virtual magnets and the south pole of the magnet. But seriously, that creates one hell of a complicated diagram to even attempt for me to draw. But basically, just roughly going over it, the trailing edge of the magnet can suck part of your drive coil's magnetic field back around the south side, which it then travels out the north side over here, and then back to the trailing edge, the south side of your drive coil. So it does kind of a weird sort of figure of 8, for want of a better way of putting it. So, just to recap here, it's probably quite a bit for people to get their heads around. You do get, from a standard drive coil with no other mods, you do get a slight field compression on the north side and the south side. Right. Add on an air coil at the right distance from your drive coil and the right geometry of the air coil itself, and you seriously compress the field in the middle of the air coil. If you get the air coil geometry wrong, right, then it's not going to work. You're going to get a field spilling out all over the place, and it's just going to be a complete and utter frigging mess. Right? And then at the front of the air coil, right, again, all these diagrams are not to scale and are completely out of whack. At the front of the air coil, you get a seriously compressed field. Seriously compressed. Couple that with the drive rotor, and you get, in this illustration, when the magnet is, say, about there, you get one hell of a compression right around there, right around the trailing edge of the magnet. And you get a, for want of a better way of putting it, a hyper acceleration of your rotor. Now, the first thing that is going to pop into people's heads is, how much more power are you going to use to create your air coil versus how much extra power are you going to create spinning the rotor faster? Well, that's a good question. But here's the even better question. Why use separate power to drive that? To drive your air coil? Right at the start of the video I said, do not drive it from the same supply as your main coil. I also said to use smaller gauge wire on your air coil and lots of turns. Combine them together, there's only one place that you can generate the power for that, and that's the back EMF from your drive. It's a high voltage source. With the right drive circuitry, you can capture the back EMF and use it to drive your focusing coil. There's no reason why you cannot do that. None whatsoever. All you do is capture the back EMF from your drive coil, dump it into some really big high voltage capacitors, add on a second pulse motor circuit that is tailored towards high voltage and specific timing, and you've just had a power source for your focusing coil. Because at the end of the day, the people that are going to be wanting to implement this to increase their torque are probably not worried about using the back EMF for its charging purposes. So use it to drive a focusing coil. It doesn't cost you anything from your input power if you do it right, and you get a hell of a lot more torque. So, how many people require a change of boxers now? I'm kidding. Hopefully, I've just blown people's minds completely open. But yes, the back EMF that comes off a drive coil can be used for multiple purposes. If you dump it into a high voltage capacitor, then it is just traditional energy, electrical energy. If you dump it into a battery, then you get other effects from that spike. So how you use it is entirely up to the experimenter. But if you're running a pulse motor for drive to drive a generator, and it is your generator that creates the power to feed back on itself to drive itself, then use the back EMF in this way. I can guarantee some people will be rewinding this. I've tried to go through it slowly and pause at specific points so that people can allow the information to sink into their brains before moving on to the next sort of step. But feel free, rewind and reach as you want. Okay. One question that may come up, I'm trying to anticipate questions. There's probably going to be 1,001. Do I have a circuit to do it? Yes, no, sort of. Go take a look at my Bedini Turbo videos and the turbo topics on the Teak forums. Next question, are there any calculations for this setup? Hell no. I have not found anything in the free energy community or in any of the science communities about doing this. Nothing. Zero. And if you find something, let me know. And I'll stick a note on this video. But I'm 99.9% sure there isn't anything, and I don't think anyone has even considered running a setup like this. I honestly don't think it's ever come up. But I've been running variations on this setup for 3 years. Yeah, maybe 4 actually. Yeah, something like that. So, do I have a feeling for how to set these up? Yes. Can I put that down into an explanation for you? No. People might be upset with that. I'm sorry, but there is no math for this. Yes, you can calculate the fields around individual coils, but when it comes to field interaction, you're talking way beyond PhDs, way beyond masters. I mean, it's the high-level universities only that are going to know about doing this. As a general rule, their students and their lecturers probably just aren't interested in its free energy applications. So I'm chucking this one at you and saying, go play with it. See what you can come up with. It's that simple. Take the concept, turn it into your own, play around. Really? Okay. Got someone messaging me already. Take the concept, play around with it, find out. That's my whole philosophy for the last 2 series of videos. Play around with the concept and find out. Don't just accept my word for it. Don't accept anyone else's word for it. Do it for yourself. That simple. As always, any questions, give me a holler. I will try to answer them as best as I can. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you don't like this video, feel free to give me a thumbs down. But I'd appreciate knowing why you gave me a thumbs down. What can I say? Unless I know the reason why, then I can't make any changes to how I do videos. Maybe I went too fast for you. Maybe it's too simple for you. Let me know. But as always, experiment, find out, and go for it. Talk to you later.